Pennsylvania Railroad Machinery Examination for Locomotive Fireman, Part 2. Instruction for Locomotive Fireman, Part 2, Chapter 8, Boiler, Fire Box, Smoke Box. A locomotive boiler, figure page 1, page 7, is the circularly fastened to the frame at the front end by the means of the cylinder saddle supported by flexible waste expansion sheets, boiler pads, the front portion of a mud ring on the top of the frame. This permits the boiler to move forward and backward on the frame as expansion and contraction takes place, and the boiler of the boiler is subject to the strain from the expansion, contraction, internal pressure of the vibration, while the firebox is subject to the crushing strains, the unequal expansion and contraction. Best results obtained with the boiler is free from leaks and mud, scale, and flues that seems tight, and no flue is stopped up with the boilers can be abused in the following manner: allowing steam pressure to drop, then blowing the boiler pot quickly over pumping the boiler, thereby reducing the steam pressure, and then allowing the pressure to rise quickly. Improper firing causing suddenly changes of the firebox temperature. Boilers are provided with the steam domes in order that the openings for the main and auxiliary steam pipes may be placed in high or possible, thus supply dry steam for the use of the cylinder locomotive prudencies. Firebox. The firebox sheets, figure 2, page 8, where they're held in place for the following manner. The crown and roof sheets are held together with a rigid expansion crown. Both the side and the door sheets are supported by the rigid and flexible stay bolts and rivets. The flue sheet is supported by the rivets and rigid, flexible stay bolts and flues. Figure 39 shows the rigid stay bolt with the telltale hole. The most common type of the stay bolt is rigid stay bolt. Figure 39, page 64 of the stay bolt. It has a screw thread on it and screwed through the bolt at the inside of the outside sheet and the end of the rivet over to all the rigid stay bolts of the telltale hole. Drill in them and is indicated with the escape of the seam with the water through the bolt and is cracked and broken. Figure 40 shows the flexible stay bolt arrangement, firebox sheet of the firebox stay bolt, the sleeve, the wrapper sheet 2, and cap. Flexible stay bolt, figure 40 with the page 64, has been threaded on one end of the round head, and on the other end, the thread of the end is screwed on the outside inside of the riveted over the head outside end of the face of the sleeve of the socket that permits the bolt adjustment itself with unequal expansion contraction. The sleeve is covered by a cap to prevent the escape of the steam or water. Figure 41 shows the rigid crown bolt with the crown sheet end and the roof sheet end. The rigid crown bolt, figure 41, page 65, has threads on each end of the screw through the crown and the roof of the sheets to end of the riveted over. The expansion crown bolt has them threaded at each of the end of the crown sheet end of the screw through the crown sheet and the riveted over the other end of the pass through the roof sheet with the sleeving end secured by the nut. Figure page 49, page 65, a cap covers the sleeves to prevent the escaping the steam. Slightly overheating the crown sheet due to lower water may result in the crown bolts seams becoming loose, and if greatly overheated with the crown sheets will force the sheet off the crown bolts and probably rupture with the crown sheet, causing the injury to life and property. Figure 42, expansion crown bolt arrangement. Figure 42 shows the cap nut, sleeve, the roof sheet, and the crown bolt. Alright, figure 43 is the smoke box arrangement of the K4S, dry pipe, superwater heater, smokestack, diaphragm, steam pipe, cylinder, lift pipe, exhaust valve, no, front end, exhaust pump, superheaters units, front flue sheets, superheater flues. Smoke box. The smoke box is located in the front end of the boiler, containing the following appliances. Figure 43 and page 66. Pipe to carry the steam with the valve chambers, exhaust pot and nozzle, steam passages threading through the exhaust pot and nozzle towards the stack creates the draft on the fire when the engine is working. The blower on figure 15, page 27 with the grate with the draft on the fire when the engine is not working. The lift of the pipe is the internal extension of the smokestack diaphragm to equalize the draft through the flues, netting to prevent large sparks from passing out through the stack at the starting the fires along with the right-of-way. Superheater head of the which is connected to the dry pipe that usually convey the steam from the dry pipe to the superheater unit and the steam pipe. The defective netting of the drafting appliances will be indicated with the fire being thrown from the stack. This should be reported on the MP62 work report. Exhaust steam of the smoking exhaust from one side of the stack must maybe covered with the drafting appliances loose out of the line. The smoke box must be kept free of the air leaks to prevent the air from entering and destroying the vacuum. Air emitted directly to the smoke box may cause the cool elected cylinder to burn and overheat with the smoke box sheets, causing them to warp at the crack. Also produce the draft through the flues. The air leaks must be reported on the MP62 work reports. Questions in Chapter 8. How did the locomotive boiler connected with the frame? 2. What strain is the barrel of the boiler subjected? 1 and 207. What is the strain in the firebox subjected to? 208. What is must be the condition of the boiler to give the best results? 209. What is the boiler sometimes abused? 210. What boiler has the steam domes? 211. How are the firebox sheets held in place? 212. Describe a rigid stay bolt. 213. What is the purpose of a telltale hole in a rigid stay bolt? And 214. Describe a flexible stay bolt. 215. Describe a rigid crown bolt. 216, describing the expansion crown bolt. 217, what is the result of the crown sheet overheated? 218, name to explain the various appliances within the smoke box. 219, what is the indication of defective netting of the draft appliances? 220, what is the indication of draft appliances loose or out of line? 221, what must the smoke box be kept free of air leak? Why must the smoke box be kept free of air leaks? Chapter 9, Water Glass and Gauge Cock. The water glass and auxiliary with the gauge cock, figure 6 and 7, page 13 and 14, for the purpose of accelerating water level in the boiler, but it must be not entirely dependent upon their air. There are a number of the conditions that may cause the given an incorrect indication of actual water level in the boiler. These conditions are: leaking on the top joints of the union water glass. These may cause the water glass to register with the highest level than water in the boiler. Leaking on the bottom joints of the union water glass. The water glass may register low level than water in the boiler. Water glass drain valve leaking and not properly closed. This will cause the water glass to register with a lower level than the water in the boiler. Top water glass valve closed, defective with the top passageway into the boiler stopped up. This will cause the water glass to register at a full glass of water. Glasses of water when they may be filled only once by the gauge and less than water than the boiler is due to not having the same steam pressure on the top of the water in the glass as there is in the boiler. This results in the pressure in the boiler forcing the water into the top of the water of the glass. Bottom of the water glass's valve is closed and defective with the bottom nipple into the boiler stopped up. The steam condition will gradually fill and the water glass with water will show the stationary reading when the engine is in motion. Have cloudy and dirty water glass. This may be due to the rigid of the inside surface of the water glasses being warm with accumulation of the scale of the inside surface. The condition will not be given a distinct reading of the water level in the glasses. All the conditions may be detected by blowing of the water glass and testing and ensure that the water is circulating in the glass when taking charge of the locomotive, frequently checking the water level in the glass of the gauge cocks while the locomotive is in motion. When the water glass is in good working order, the water level will move up and down with the water glass with the movement of the locomotive. When the locomotive is started ahead, the water surges to the back end of the boiler, shows the high water level, the just opposite of curves when the locomotive is started backwards. Knowledge of the action of water in the boiler is important necessary to prevent the damage to the boiler at the water glass of the gauge cocks. Only register the water at the point where they are located. Allowance must be made for when the locomotive is on either the level track. Questions on Chapter 9. Why should you not depend entirely upon the water level that's shown with the water glass? How does the leak in the top joints for the union water glass affect the water level in the glass? 227. How does the leak in the bottom of the joints and unions of the water glass affect the water level in the glass? 228. What effect does the leaking and improperly closed water glass drain valve have on the water level in the glass? 229. What is the cause when you find the water glass full of water and there is only one gauge or less of water in the boiler? 230. What is wrong when the water in the glass shows a stationary reading when the locomotive is in motion? 231. What is the cloudy and dirty water glass? 232. Well, how can the condition of this cause incorrect water level of the glass gases to be detected? 233. How does the water in the glass act when the glass is in good working condition? 234. Explain the action water of the boiler when the engine is starting ahead and backwards. Why is the knowledge of the action of the water in the boiler necessary? Alright, Chapter 10, circulation, saturated, and superheated steam. Circulation is a movement of the water within the boiler that is caused by heat with the water in the contact with the firebox sheet with the fluids absorb the heat from the fire that rises. As heated with water rise with replace the water with lower tide temperature. The good circulation is obtained by the firing of the light with a bright flowing flame fire over the entire firebox, thus reducing the greatest amount of the heat water as it enters the boiler as into low temperature and feeding the boiler too fast for what retards circulation with the result of the steam pressure not increased properly. Saturated steam. The steam is a gas which is converted with water by the means of the heat. Saturated steam is the same, and steam has the same temperature as the water, but its boiler. Any reduction in the temperature results in condensation. Superheated steam is the steam heated with a high temperature that when water then boiler passing through an appliance known as the superheater. After leaving the dry pipe, the steam enters the superheater header on one side of the portion of the wall, and the header of these pipe then passes through superheater units, figure 43, page 66, which are a series of pipes located within inside of the large boiler flues and the other side of the superheater portion, and are from through the steam pipe to the valve of the chamber for the hot gas from the firebox, passing through the large flues, coming in contact with the superheater units, heating the steam into the superheater units on its way to the cylinders, with the result that is in much higher temperature than it will when it will left in the boiler. The addition of the heat reduces the total elimination, condensation increases the volume, and expansive power of the steam that will result with the water consumption reduced about 20%, and the coal consumption is also less. The success of the superheater depends largely upon the performance of the fireman. Heavy and hummed short flame fire may be produced maximum boiler pressure, but high temperature is not developed in around superheater units, with the result of the steam that enters the valve chamber. The very low degree of the superheated light, bright, and long flame fire does not only produce maximum boiler pressure, but it maintains a very high temperature around the superheater and units, and will result that then steam enters the valve chambers at a very high degree or superheater that saves water from the fuel and labor. Water carried too high into the boiler is carried over through the dry pipe to reduce the effectiveness of the superheater because of the heat that should be superheated with the steam is used to make steam out of the water passing through the superheater. It also washes the lubrication of the valve and cylinder walls, causing damage to valve rings and cylinder packing, and retards the action of the engine, causing the considerable waste of fuel. Question on Chapter 10. What is meant by circulation in boiler? How is good circulation obtained by firemen? 242. What will retard the circulation of water in the boiler? 243. What is steam? 244. What is saturated steam? 245. What is superheated steam? 246. Describe how steam is superheated. 247. What are the advantages in the use of superheated steam? 248. How does the superheated steam save water and fuel? 249. How can firemen aid and retard the effectiveness of the superheater? 250. How does the water carried to the high in the boiler affect the superheater? 251. What are the bad effects does the higher water have on the cylinders? Chapter 11. Foaming and treated water blowdown. Foaming is caused by the excessive amount of the impurities present in the water. The impurities remain in the boiler when the water is evaporated and the steam becomes concentrated and not removed. These impurities are two kinds of elements. Soluble elements that dissolve in water with the result of the formation of a hard scale on the interior of the boiler, which causes the reduction of the transfer heat from the fire on the gases into the water and into the boiler, thus lowering the steam capacity of the boiler. The elements are found to be testing of the water. They are harmfully effective inside of the boiler, can be neutralized by the chemical treatment of the water. Solids that form of the mud sludge do not dissolve but settle with the lowest part of the boiler. The solids can be removed from the automatically and manually operated blowdown systems. Foaming water causes the locomotive to carry the work water that have the same effect of carrying too much water in the boiler. This will cover the difference from the water level as shown with the water gauge of the gauge cocks. The gauge cocks shown in the aggregated condition of the water at the point where they are located, while the water passing through the lower connection to the water glass may not show the aggregated or foaming condition of the water. When a locomotive starts to work the water, the gauge cock shows 3 gauges of the water, while the water glasses register the much lower reading. It would be indicated that the boiler is foaming. There is danger when the throttle is closed. The water level may fall below the top of the crown sheet up at the flows, causing the crown sheet to overheat. In this case, the throttle should be closed slowly at the bottom of the gauge cock tried to show the true water level, in which must at all times maintained above the top of the crown sheet. Cylinder cocks open to prevent damage to the cylinder. The supply of the water increases. The true water level is indicated when the throttle is closed. Blowdowns on boilers are from the purpose of removing the mud and sludge that form the impurity of the water, also the concentration of the suspended chemicals that are present in the boiler water that has been chemically treated. With the failure to properly use blowdown as instructed will result in the road failures due to the bad water box raising, leaking sables, or burned firebox sheets. All locomotives are equipped with one or more of the following blowdowns: automatic, that operates only with the throttle is open; manually operated with the cab, with the outlets of the rear water leg; manually operated with the running boards with the outlet in the side of the water legs; D, manually operated from the ground with outlets in the throat sheet. Automatic blowdown. The automatic blowdown, figure 44, page 75, is a device that allows the small amount of the water, approximately 300 gallons per hour, to discharge from the boiler when the throttle is open. The purpose of this device is to control the boiler water concentration at a reasonable figure by the continuous removal of dissolved solids and sludge, approximately the same rate that they are added with the speed of the water. The main parts of the automatic blowdown system are the automatic blowdown valve located on the rear of the water leg with a separate located on the top of the boiler. The automatic blowdown valve discharges the water from the boiler to separated with which permits the steam to escape to the atmosphere, discharge the water to the ground through the discharge pipe. This device is working when the water comes from the discharge pipe. If the automatic blowdown system continues to discharge water from the boiler after the throttle is closed, the opening of the cylinder cock is moved to the reverse lever forward and back several times to relieve it from the pressure of the valve chamber. If this does not eliminate the trouble, it may be due to excessive leaking through the throttle of the defective blowdown valve. This condition should be reported to the MP62 form at the end of the trip. The discharge of the water from the top of the separator that is indicated with the clog from a frozen discharge pipe. The condition should be reported on an MP62 form at the end of the trip. Alright, your manual blowdown. Boilers equipped with a manual blowdown should be blown down only at points specified on the road by road foreman or of engines. The following road procedures should be followed. When training is stopped en route for the cold water filler boiler, water level to within 1 inch of the less of the top of the water glass. Shut off the injector and feed water pump. Blow down the boiler until the water is within 1/2 inch of the bottom of the glass using a throat sheet blowdown. Feed the refill boiler to within 1 inch of the less below the top of the water glass. Locomotives equipped with a blowdown, which it can be operated with from the cab. Same procedure 1 should be followed with them all moving, except that the injector of the feed water pump should not be shut off when it's blowing down over the engine with the engine working steam. Figure 44 automatic blowdown arrangement shows the separator, the roof sheet, the back head, the automatic blowdown valve, the steam pipe from the cylinder, the discharge pipe to the separator, and the discharge pipe to the ground. When train is stopped for the reason other than taking coal or water, the station is stopped. The blowdown shall be opened wide just prior to the starting for at least 20. After again starting, the boiler should not be blown down until the speed of at least 8 miles per hour has been attained. All blowing down unless the engine is working steam should be done with an injector feed water pump shut off. Proper blowdown should be not neglected because of the light training because the boiler has just been washed and had water changed. This may relieve the water in bad condition for the next run, which may have a heavier train. Best results obtained with the correcting of foaming condition by blowing down the water in the boiler while working steam. Questions Chapter 11. What causes the foaming of locomotive boiler? What two kinds of impurities are found in boiler water? What is the boiler water chemically treated? How can solids that form in the mud or sludge in the boiler be removed? What effect does the foaming water have on the locomotive? What effect does the foaming water have on water level in the boiler gauge as indicated with the gauge cocks and water glass? What are the indications of the water is foaming in the boiler when the engine is working? What dangerous conditions may result from the water foaming in the boiler? What action must be taken when the water in the boiler is foaming? What are the purpose of the blowdowns on the boiler? What are the bad results may be obtained by the operating of the locomotive for the maintenance of the boiler through the failure to use the blowdown instructed? 266. What are the various kinds of blowdowns known to use? How each of the one is operated? What is the automatic blowdown? What is the purpose of the automatic blowdown? What are the main parts of the automatic blowdown system when they are located? How can you tell when the automatic blowdown is working? What is the purpose of the automatic blowdown valve? What is the purpose of the separator? What should be done if the automatic blowdown continues to discharge water from the boiler after the throttle is closed? What may cause the water to discharge from the top of the separator? At what point should this boiler be equipped with the manual blowdown to be blown on the road? What procedure should be followed when the blowing down of the boiler when the train is stopped for coal and water? How should boiler be blown in when the train is moving? How should the boiler be blown when the train is stopped for reasons other than taking coal or water in the station or a station stop? It is necessary to blow down boiler while it's light train, while the boiler has just been washed or water changed, or why. How are the best results obtained in correcting a foaming condition? Chapter 5. Injectors and feed water pumps. Lifting and non-lifting injectors. The principal valve of the tube of the injector are the steam valve, the water valve, the overflow of the valve, the steam nozzle, combining with the delivery tubes. Water is taken from the tank into the injector in the following manner. Lifting injector. The figure 8, page 45. Figure 8 and 45, page 16 and 78. The programming of the injectors permit the jet with the steam to pass through the steam nozzle exhaust the air from the body of the injector feed pipe, creating the partial vacuum here and the atmospheric pressure on the water, and the tank forces the water up into the injectors. Non-lifting injector figure 9, 10, 46, and page 17, 19, and 78. This type of injector is located below the level of the water in the tank. The water flows directly to the injector. Water is forced into the boiler on the submersible that imparting the cold water, the velocity of the steam, the flow of the water having been started through the injector of the priming it, opening the steam valve causes the jet of the steam to impinge on it, combine with water with the imparting velocity of the water sufficient to the force and through the delivery pipe, opening the boiler check and allowing the water to enter the boiler. Our figure 45 shows the lifting injector, 1, the steam nozzle, 2, the combining tube, 3, the delivery tube, 4, the steam valve, 5, the water valve, 6, the overflow valve. Your non-lifting injector shows 1, the steam nozzle, 2, the combining tube, 3, the delivery tube. An injector to work properly must have the free of the unobstructed flow of the water from the tank of the steam to depart with the sufficient velocity of the water to force it into the boilers. No leaking in the suction pipe of the feed water, but must be cool enough to condense steam and no obstruction of the tube. The boiler check of the valve must be free with the mud proper fit. Some of the causes for injecting are failure to provide air and no water in the tank. Tank valve partially entirely closed. Strains are stopped up. The hose line loose. Hose kinked. Leaking in the feed pipe. Lubes or injector cup limed up or out of line, leaking boiler check valve, the supply and the inlet valve check stuck open, overflow pipe obstructed, turret valve not wide open, manhole covers on the tank are too tight or frozen. Failure of an injector to work properly after it has primed may be due to any of the following conditions: insufficient water, steam supply tubes badly cut or out of line, boiler check of the check stuck shut, overflow valve not properly open, combining delivery tube stopped up. Escape of the steam from overflowing tap pipe when the injector is not working with the indication of the leaking steam ram. Steam valve when the steam and the water escape the boiler check is leaking. When the injector is working, the discharge water and the steam and the overflow may be caused by the plowing too much water. Steam not always condensed due to too much steam or insufficient water. The tubes are cut and warm partially stopped up. When water in the tank becomes too hot, it should be cooled. If it cannot be done with the steam, pressure of the injector should be reduced by the closing the injector turret valve tightly, then operating it very slowly, about 1/3 until the injector operates. While in the non-lifting injector, the steam pressure can be controlled with the injector steam valve. The Worthington Feedwater pumps type BA, SA, and SAS. All types of Worthington Feedwater pumps should be run continuously while the locomotive is in operation at the speed necessary to maintain the proper water level in the boiler. When the engine is standing at the drifting, the speed of the pump is slowed down with the drifting of the control valve. When it automatically slows down the pump when the throttle is closed, and will automatically speed up the throttle is open. The device is controlled by live steam pressure from the valve chambers. No attempt should be made to adjust the valve. If it does not function properly, report should be made at the end of the trip. With the feed water heating equipment, it is not necessary to fill the boiler while the locomotive is standing in order to be ready for the start of the train. The smallest steam requirement of the hot water pump is compared with the injector pipe makes it possible to start the pump when the locomotive is started without loosening the steam pressure. The method of operating yields the best result. Both the heater and the locomotive, because of the heat recovered from the exhaust steam, because of the improvement of the boiler conditions due to the reducing fire rate, the heater saves from 10 to 20% of the coal which otherwise will be required while running. Unless more work is to be done by the locomotive because of the heater, less coal should be fired when they're using the injector. The sound of the exhaust from the locomotive is softer when using the heater. The allowance should be made from the judging of the amount of the work of the locomotive is doing, determined from the position of the reverse lever. The following is a list of possible trouble that may be encountered with the feed water pump and the procedures to be followed. Locomotive throws the water in from the stack. The stop of the pump is used for the injector from the time to see if the locomotive stops throwing water. If it does, then start the pump and see if the throwing of the water starts again. If so, stop the pump and use the injector for the remainder of the trip. B. If the water pump does not start properly, open and close the pump throttle several times. If it does not start the pump, increase lubricator. Feed temporarily. Repeat the above. If in the pump will not then start, proceed using the injector. C. Feed water pump does not supply the boiler. This may be due to the partially closed tank valve, the clogged tank hose, strainer, defective discharge or suction valve, defective hot water cylindrical packing, defective drifting control valve. The excessive discharge of the vent pipe while the feed water pump is in operation indicate that the defective hot water cylinder packing the valves on the type B pump or stuck on the loose float valve in the heater of the type SNSA or SAS. Feed water pumps become steam-bound. This occurs when the cold water pump loses the suction and becomes filled with an air, later with steam, and may be due to the water in the tank getting too low. Proceeding with the train to the nearest water to stop using the injector when the tank is being again filled with water. The pump should be tried, but the trouble persists as indicated with the issue of the suction line with the strainers are obstructed. Work reports should be stated as clearly as possible when the troubles are encountered on the road. If it causes known, it should be reported. If not known, the trouble should be carefully described. Questions Chapter 12. Name of the principal valve of the tubes of the injector. How the water is taken from the tank into the lifting and the non-lifting injector. How the water and the injector force into the boiler. What is necessary if the injector is to work properly. Name some of the causes of the injector failure to prime. Name some of the causes why injectors will not work after the prime. What are some of the indications of leaking steam ram or steam valve or leaking boiler check? Name some of the reasons which cause the interjection injector while working to discharge water or the steam from the overflow. What should be done if the water in the tank becomes too hot? Describe how and when the Worthington feed water pump should be operated. What controls of the speed of the Worthington feed water pump when standing of the drifting? What control of the actions of the drifting control valve? 297. What drifting control valves should be adjusted by the engine crew if it does not function properly, and what should be done? 298. What should be done when the locomotive is equipped with the Worthington feed water pump throws water from the stack? 299. What is the cause when Worthington feed water pump does not supply the boiler? 300. What should be done with when Worthington feed water pump does not start properly? 301. What does indicate the most successful discharge from the vent pipe of the Worthington feed water pump? 302. What caused the Worthington feed water with the pump becoming steam bound, and what is the best method of overcoming this difficulty? When the Worthington feed water equipment in the fails to do properly en route, how much is it reported to arrival at the terminal? Chapter 13. Lubrication. General lubrication is placing a thin layer of lubrication between the moving surfaces of the metal so that they do not touch each other. Proper lubrication prevents friction, reduces the wear of and the consumption of the coal and water. When lubrication is applied, the machinery care must be taken to note that the oil holes are open and that the oil gets into the bearings. That only enough the oil should be used to properly lubricate the parts. Engine oil should be kept away from the boiler in the warming weather to keep it away from becoming too hot, or as hot oil runs off bearings and is wasted. Your hydrostatic lubricator. The hydrostatic lubricator is located on the cab at as high elevation as possible in order to induce the oil to flow and more readily to the various parts of the lubricated. The principle of the hydrostatic lubricator is the column of the water exerts the pressure upon the oil in the reservoir so that it forces the oil past the regulating valves to the point of delivery. The principle operates in the following manner. The steam becomes emitted with the condensing chamber of the water, with the condensation flows from the water pipe inside the lubricator to the oil of the reservoir. Setting at the bottom of the range of the oil forces it down through the oil tube to site feed regulating valves. When the valves are open, a small drop of the oil passes up through the water site and the site feed glasses to the oil pipes leading to the valve chamber, the closed cylinder, stroker, air compressor, feed water pump, and booster. This air flows of the air regulating by checked by valves and check choke plugs. Choke plugs are for the purpose of balancing the flow steam from lubricated to steam shaft, located as valves for valve chambers and cylinders at the front end of the oil pipe. For strokers and air pumps, feed water pumps, boosters, as the connection oil pipe with the lubricator is indicated, the holes of the choke plugs are too large for the lubricated feed, but the faster when the throttle is closed and wide open. When lubricated is working properly, feeding with the right amount of the oil, the valves of the cylinders appear dry. The throttle should be eased off to relieve the steam chest pressure. The oil then being held above the choke plug should be then flow into the steam chest. If this does not correct the trouble, it is possible that the oil pipe is stopped up. The hydrostatic lubricator should be regulated to deliver the following amounts of oil. Cylinder feeds the yard locomotives depending upon size of cylinders, 3 to 8 drops per minute. Road locomotives depending upon size and speed of the cylinders, X to 12. Stoker feeds 3. Air pump feeds 2 to 4. Feed water pump feeds 3. And roster feeds 2. These feeds of hydrostatic lubricators must be washed frequently to ensure that the delivering of the proper amount of the improper lubrication may result in the worn valve, cylinder packing rings, bushings, or possibly break of the valve gear parts. Mechanical lubricator. A mechanical lubricator delivers oil in the valve chamber, the cylinders, or other parts of the locomotive. Some of the later type of locomotives are equipped with 5 lubricators. Principal parts of the mechanical lubricator are body cover, pumping unit, heater, and filler cap and drain, plug, oil gauge, driver, mechanism necessary to piping, terminal checks. A high pressure terminal check, the figure 47, page 85, is used in the lubricating line near the point at which the oil is introduced into the steam at a low pressure. Terminal check and the use of the other points such as the guides, etc. that are non-subject to the steam pressure. Each jacket is provided with the valve that is held in closed position until the oil pressure is sufficient to raise the diaphragm to which the valve is attached. Or shows the terminal check valve diaphragm, the air vent, the oil inlet in the diaphragm, oil outlet. The The purpose of the terminal check is to eliminate the possibility of the water steam getting into the lubricator should they prevent the draining oil out of the oil pipe when lubricating is standing. When it is known that there is oil in the lubricator, there are no visible defects, but the valve and cylinders are not receiving properly lubrication. The trouble may be due to the water in the oil reservoir. This can determine the opening of the drain plug, and if the water found in this should be drained out and reported made on the arrival at the terminal. If the heater pipe's mechanical lubricator should break, and the end of the pipe should be pounded and shut to prevent the escape of the steam, or if in the cold weather the pipe should be bent, if possible, so the escaping steam is around with the heat in the lubricator. When the mechanical lubricator runs empty route, it is refilled in some intermediate terminal. A report should be made with the end of the run, because it is quite probably that the lubricator is airbound and will not lead excessively high or noticeable low oil consumption from the mileage of the trip should be also reported. Questions Chapter 13. What is lubrication? What is the result of obtaining proper lubrication? What should be observed in oil or in machinery? What should engine oil be kept away from the boiler in warm weather? Whether is hydrostatic lubricator located and why? What is the principle of the hydrostatic lubricator? How does the hydrostatic lubricator operate? What is the purpose of the choke plugs and where are they located? 318. What is usually the feed? Usually causes the hydrostatic lubricator feed faster when the throttle is closed with a wide opening. 319. What should be done when the valve of the cylinder appears to dry while using steam and the hydrostatic lubricator is working properly? 320. Why must the feed the hydrostatic lubricator with the frequent watch frequently? 321. What may result in proper lubrication? What are the principal parts of the mechanical lubricator? What is the terminal check? What is the purpose of the terminal check? What might, if the trouble, if known, there is unoiled mechanical lubricator known device, visible defects, and valves and cylinders are not receiving proper lubrication. What can be done if the heater pipe and mechanical lubricator should break? What action should be taken at the end of the run and mechanical lubricator runs empty and is filled at some intermediate point or oil consumption has been excessively high or noticeably low for mileage of the trip? Chapter 14. Electrical headlight equipment. Your turbo generator. Power of the electrical equipment on the locomotive is provided with the steam driven turbo generator composed with the turbine electrical generator located on the smoke box. Turbo generator started with the opening of the steam valve slowly to permit the condensation of the drain through the turbine, then opening the steam valve wide. It should not be run unnecessarily, and when the steam is turned off to be ensure that the valve is tightly closed. Lubrication of the turbo generator by the engine crew is not necessary at all. The bearings are inspected with the lubricator at the end of each of the run by engine house EMs. Electrical headlight. There are two types of headlight lamps mainly. Screw-based lamps, the bases of which they are threaded, and pre-focus lamps, which are bayonet type. The base is retaining fin mounted on the opposite net side near the gauge glass bulb, and one side of these fins wider than the other, corresponding with the slots of the socket, one of which is also wider than the other, than the wider slots being at the top. Pre-focus lamps are installed inserting the base of the lamp into the socket with the pins opposite to the corresponding slots. Push home and give a quarter turn to the right. They are removed, depressing the lamp straight into the socket. Give the quarter turn to the left and pull out. The base of the broken headlight bulb may be removed from the socket in the following manner. By using a standard wooden spike plug, the use of the plug spike holes in the ties, screw type bulb, inserting square end of the plug into the sub and turning the counterclockwise from the bayonet type of the bulb, inserting the pointed end into the press hard enough to overcome the spring back of the bulb, and then turn the counterclockwise until the sub is released. B. By using a flagstick can only be used if the headlight is equipped with a front door. Alright, your glove hand should be used, if possible, in changing the headlight lamps to avoid injury. The following locomotives are equipped with a spare headlight lamp carried on the original carton into the headlight housing. A. All passenger locomotives. B. All freight locomotives equipped with a single headlight wheel with a glass reflector with a pre-focus base lamp. When headlight lamp fails en route with the switching locomotives equipped with a screw-based lamp, that should be replaced with a lamp removed from the center of the headlight with the rear of the tender. If the headlight lamp failure occurs with the locomotive equipped with the full power headlights on both ends for the headlight lamp shall be removed from the head trailing end installed on the leading end. Alright, when trouble has been experienced with the electrical equipment, the report shall be made with the MP62 forms stating that what occurred and what seemed to be done caused the trouble and what, if anything, was done to remedy the trouble. Alright, question Chapter 14. How is provided power provided with electrical equipment on locomotives? How should the turbo generator be started? If lubrication of the turbo generator is necessary while en route? What types of headlight lamps are there in use? Describe each type of the headlight lamp. How the pre-focused headlight lamp is installed. How the pre-focused headlight lamp is removed. How much base and broken headlight lamp beam be removed from the socket. How precautions should be used and changing the headlight lamps to avoid injury. When locomotives are furnished with a spare headlight lamp, what should be done with the headlight lamp that fails to en route with the freight of switching locomotives equipped on the screw-based lamps? What should be done in the headlight lamp if the failure occurs with the locomotives equipped with the full power headlights on both ends? What must be reported at the end of the trip when the trouble has been experienced with the electrical equipment? Alright, Chapter 15. Conditions of causing poor steam. Steaming. Principle causing the preventing the locomotive from steam freeing with the rate of excessive smoke are the effect of the locomotive improper fitting with the cause of the effect of the complete combustion with the coal and not permitting sufficient supply of the air to mixture of the gas through the coal and sufficient higher temperature to ignite the mixture of the good combustion consistent with supplying the proper amount of the air to the fire. The air is drawn in with by the drafting the created from the exhaust steam with the passing through the stack through when the locomotive is working by the use of the blower. When the locomotive is not working, not enough of the air can be admitted to the fire will materially affect the free steaming of the locomotive and may be caused by the following. 1. Defects on the locomotive. Smoke box not airtight. This permits the air to enter the smoke box through the opening to destroy the vacuum as the amount of the air into the wood and correspond to reduce the amount of the air and that would pass through the grates and result in the reduce the draft through the fire. Steam leaking in the smoke box. This may due to leaking steam pipe joint with the loose exhaust pot nozzle leaking and superheated the unit condition caused to engage the steam poorly while working but gain steam rapidly when the throttle is closed and the blower applied. See, smoke box full of the cinders of the netting plug with this cause the locomotive to steam poorly while working does not regain the steam rapidly when thoroughly is closed and the blower is applied. If practicable, the smoke box should be open and front end of the netting cleaned. Smoke box draft appliance loose out or lined. This indicates when exhaust or steam and smoke issues from one side of the stack. Flue stopped up. This has a tendency to produce a red fire when sufficient air cannot pass through the fire. Leaking flues or other firebox leaks. Water from leaks in the firebox evaporate into the steam coming into the contact with a hot gas lower than the temperature. Also affects the vacuum in the front end, resulting in less draft through the fire. 2. Improper firing. Grates becoming clogged with ashes and clinker. This does not permit the sufficient air to pass through the fire. Clinkers are caused by heavy tiring and splash which permits slag and ash to run together. They should not be removed if possible. If they cannot be done, they should be broken and worked through the grates and pulled to the back corners. B. Putting too much coal on the bright fire. The temperature deadens the coals and the fire will result in the combustion and stop until the fresh coal is heated to the burn point. This is a waste of fuel and conductivity is clogging in front of the end of the netting of the flues. Many bad fire conditions can be prevented before the developing into serious difficulties, and the fireman forms the habit of frequently inspecting the fire. There are so many factors and conditions which have the tendency to change fire conditions. The frequently inspection of the fire absolutely necessary. The shortening of the cutoff of the easing off on the throttle requires the decreased amount of coal, and the firebox decreases the amount of water required to maintain the boiler water at the proper level. The firebox conditions are changed when the coal changes from lump to slack, from slack to lump, or if the condition of the coal changes from dry to wet, from wet to dry. Jet pressures have an effect on condition on the fire. The stroker speed and the stroker jet pressures must be adjusted if the condition of the coal changes and even the fluid conditions change. By frequent inspection, the fireman can detect the formation of clinkers, can prevent the plug arches, blanks, and holes in any condition of the firebox, which causes unbalanced draft tends to cause the air carry over the cinders and unburned coal, which may result in plugged or front end netting through the frequent inspection. Difficulties can be detected and corrected before they can become serious. The engineer foremen are best in position to determine the cause of the locomotive not steaming. For the MP62 report shall be furnished with detailed information specifying just where, in their opinion, the trouble is, so that the engine house force will not be compelled to move expensive tests unnecessarily, which will hold the engine out of service. Question Chapter 15. What are the primary principal causes to prevent locomotive steam freely? What is one of the chief causes of imperfect combustion? What are the locomotive defects effect of the free steaming of the locomotive? What is the bad effect of the car producing the smoke box and non-airtight? What condition causes the engine to steam poorly while working gain steam rapidly when trouble is closed and the blower applied? When trouble is indicated when the locomotive steam poorly while working when it does not gain steam rapidly when the throttle is closed or properly applied? What action should be taken in the smoke box and fill the cinders from the front end of the netting is plugged? What causes exhaust to issue from one side of the stack? What conditions has tendency to produce red fire? How do leaking fluids in the firebox leaks affect the steaming quality of the locomotive? How do the improper firing affect the free steaming of the locomotive? What causes clinkers? What should be done with the clinkers and form in the fire? While the effective putting of much of the coal on the bright future fire was the best port position to determine the cause of the locomotive now steaming and how should be the MP62 report prepared covering in this matter. Inspection for locomotive Fireman, Part 3, Chapter 16, Qualification Duties of an Engineer, General Operation of Locomotive.